What's going on, lads and lasses? Welcome back to 100% Mags. So this is of course my reaction to Gareth Southgate's squad selection ahead of the Euros 2020, and of course we're finally getting to this tournament. It should have happened last year if not for the pandemic going on in the world, but it is what it is. We are at least finally getting it, and of course Gareth Southgate picked his squad on the 1st of June. Like I say, I am very late to this, but a lot has happened since then. Of course, we've played our first friendly against Austria. We're playing again tonight against Romania. Our final test before the big event. And of course, with the Euros not that far around the corner, here is a reaction to the England squad going to Euro 2020. If you could, please put a like on the video and also subscribe to the channel, as I'm on the road to 500 subscribers. And without further ado, let's get into it. So we're going to start with the goalkeepers first. We're going to give you my reaction to that selection, and then we'll move down to the defenders, midfielders and strikers, and then end out the video with my thoughts on how I think England will do in the Euros. So we'll start off with the goalkeepers first. Of course, Southgate picked 3 goalkeepers to go to the tournament as usual. Them 3 goalkeepers this time around were, of course, Dean Henderson, Sam Johnstone of West Brom, Dean Henderson, of course, of Man United, and Jordan Pickford of course, Everton. Now, me thoughts on them goalkeepers. Dean Henderson, he hasn't really gotten much time in Man United this season, but I can see why Southgate picked him. He is a future up-and-coming England international goalkeeper. And of course, he's going to be a one to look out for in the future, along the lines of course, Freddie Woodman, in my eyes, you know. But that's somebody that I want to touch on as well that hasn't been included. Of course, Sam Johnstone is being included into the squad from West Brom. For me, Sam Johnstone doesn't really do anything, you know, for West Brom this season. The team, of course, got relegated back down to the Championship on the first time back up, and I don't know why Gareth Southgate has decided to pick him ahead of so many other options that were out there. You know, there was so many other English options that he could have went with, and he decided to go with Sam Johnstone in there as well. For me, I would have went for, of course, I am a little biased on this one, being that, of course, it is my team, Newcastle United, but I would have went with Freddie Woodman. Absolutely amazing goalkeeper. He's been out on loan at Swansea for the past 2 years. He's done some really good stuff down there. Of course, he's a former World Cup winner as well. Even though it was with the under-21s, he's still a World Cup winner, so he should have been at least given a shout for an inclusion in this England squad going into this Euros, but instead, for some reason, Southgate decided to go with Sam Johnstone in there. If he gets a game or not, it's going to be a different matter. I think it's going to be more along the lines of Jordan Pickford in goal as number 1, Henderson as number 2, Sam Johnstone is like the backup in case anything happens to the other 2 goalkeepers. As for Jordan Pickford, you know, there's not really much you can say on that. Jordan Pickford has been getting the England number 1 spot in goal for quite a while now, and that's probably the way it's going to be as well for a little while until somebody comes along to knock him off his perch. In my eyes, it should probably be, you know, Freddie Woodman. He's absolutely sensational, and I'm not just saying that because he's a Newcastle player, but he's a really good future England number 1. And he should be given a shout sometime soon. Moving on to the defenders, of course, as we know, the defenders were picked, and it was Arnold, Chilwell of Chelsea, Arnold of course, Liverpool, Connor Cody of Wolves, Reece James of Chelsea, Harry Maguire, who was a strange one to see included, being that he is on crutches still at this moment in time, but he was included. Tyrone Mings of Aston Villa was included, Luke Shaw of Man U, John Stones of Man City, Kieran Trippier of Atletico Madrid, formerly Tottenham, and of course Kyle Walker of Manchester City. For me, I wouldn't have went with Harry Maguire of course, for the obvious reason, like I just stated, he is on crutches, and it looks like he is going to miss out on quite a bit of the tournament. So that was a bit of a daft decision, I thought, from Southgate picking Harry Maguire when there was so many other options out there that he could have went with. Arnold as well. We now know that Arnold is going to miss out on the tournament with him picking up a hamstring injury in that friendly, of course, against Austria. He ended up going off. He'd only just got picked for the England squad the day beforehand, going to the game against Austria, and he gets injured, and now he's missing the tournament. So he's going to be out of the rest of the tournament, of course, with that hamstring injury. We'll have to wait and see who Southgate picks, of course, to go in as the replacement for Arnold. But, you know, there should be at least some more positions covered, as we do have quite a bit of cover at that right back position. So I would like to see somebody like a Ward-Prowse added in there. You know, there's even Joe Willock as well. Jesse Lingard's worth a shout as well to be included, which moves what on to, of course, the midfielders. So we went with Jude Bellingham, Jordan Henderson, Mason Mount, Calvin Phillips, and Declan Rice. Of course, Jude Bellingham of Borussia Dortmund, Jordan Henderson of Liverpool, Mason Mount of Chelsea, Calvin Phillips of Leeds United, and of course Declan Rice of West Ham. For me, the midfield is pretty decent. I wouldn't have included Jordan Henderson though, with him not playing any games since, of course, February, so that is quite a while out. And I'm not just saying that I wouldn't have included him in the fact that, of course, he's a ex-Mackham, but, you know, looking past that, the whole fact of him not playing since February is a big factor. You know, we need fit legs going into this tournament. We need to be looking at doing the best we can in this tournament, especially coming off of that amazing World Cup that we had as well. We need to be improving on that performance from that World Cup. And for me, there was other options there that Southgate could have went with, and instead he chose Jordan Henderson, who hasn't played since February. You know, like I just mentioned, there was Ward-Prowse he could have went with there. There's, you know, Joe Willock he could have went with. Lingard he could have went with. You know, all these different players that he could have went with, and he went with Jordan Henderson in there. The other players around him in the midfield, absolutely good choices. Nothing wrong with them whatsoever, but the Jordan Henderson one is a big disappointment, considering that, of course, he hasn't played since February. Moving on, of course, to the forwards, and he called up Calvin Lewin of Everton, Phil Foden of Manchester City, Jack Grealish of Aston Villa, Harry Kane of Tottenham, Marcus Rashford of Man United, Bukayo Saka of Arsenal, Jadon Sancho of course, Borussia Dortmund, and Raheem Sterling of course, Manchester City. For me, the forwards are pretty decent. There is some players that are missing out of that inclusion though as well. It would have been nice to see Callum Wilson get an inclusion into that, but for some reason, you know, he hasn't gotten that chance to be called up for the Euros. The other players, you know, there, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, he's proven that he can score goals this season. Look at the way he played for Everton at the beginning of the season. You know, he's definitely a player that should be called up to the England squad for this tournament. Phil Foden as well has done really well this season. Jack Grealish, he's a reasonably good player when he puts his mind to it and he can play a game of football instead of doing what we see quite a lot in the modern game these days, which is diving. If he's been included for that is another factor though. That's what it feels like to me, that Southgate's called him up for the ability that he can win a set piece here and there for England in the tournament, but then, you know, he hasn't really included anybody in the team that can take the likes of a free kick from outside the box, you know, which that's the area where you would have thought that Ward-Prowse would have been included in the selection for the upcoming tournament, but for some reason he hasn't been. But Jack Grealish, not a bad pick. When he's puts his mind to it and he puts in the performances. Harry Kane as well, Golden Boot this season in the Premier League, and he's got 14 assists as well. Good inclusion in the squad. Marcus Rashford, not quite the player he used to be, but I think if he puts his head down and gets on with his game, then I think he will be a good pick for the team going into the tournament. Bukayo Saka, young up-and-coming player at Arsenal. He scored in the game as well against Austria, so we'll have to see how he can perform going into the tournament. Jadon Sancho, absolutely sensational player, world-renowned, really setting the German league alight as well, just along the likes of Jude Bellingham, who's his fellow teammate at Borussia Dortmund. And there's a lot of really good English talent out there at the moment in the German league and in other foreign leagues as well, that could do with moving back to the English game. And Jadon Sancho is definitely one of them. And I'm absolutely going to be watching Jadon Sancho well and truly in this tournament to see how he goes on with his performances. Raheem Sterling, absolutely amazing as well. He's really set some good goals since moving to Manchester City. He's really done a lot with his career as well since moving to Man City from Liverpool, and I'm expecting him to do some more of that in this tournament coming up. But my thoughts on that squad: there's some really good picks in the team. There's some picks that I wouldn't have done, and there's some picks that are pretty weak and could have done with some better players in there. Like I say, the Sam Johnston one, pretty weak choice. Wouldn't have went with that myself, to be honest, being that the team, of course, did go down into the Championship, and he was, of course, playing the majority of the games this season in goal for West Brom. Jordan Henderson, again, the reasoning behind the fact that he was out since February and he hasn't played a game. It's another one that I wouldn't have went with myself. Harry Maguire as well. The fact that he's on crutches, it's a big disappointment having him on the list, I think, because we're going to be ending up carrying bodies here, and we don't want to do that. We need fresh legs going in this tournament. We need players that are going to be playing for the country, playing for the name on the front of the shirt, as that is what matters the most. And of course, putting all that pride into the nation, which was so rightfully needed as well right at this time, as every other country does, with what's been going on in the world with this pandemic. But anyway, if you liked the video, please hit a like on the video. Please subscribe to the channel as well, as I'm on the road to 500 subscribers, and I'll see you all next time. However, lads.